So I'm sitting here with Eddie McAffer. You're here with the company for about 49 years.
49 and a half years now.
49 and a half years, so big anniversary coming up. Thank you for having us in the distillery.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately, the distillery is not working right now. We can't visit it, but you're here to answer us some questions. And let's just dive right in. Bowmore means the Great Reef.
The big reef, yeah.
Where can I find the reef?
Just 200 yards to the west of the distillery is the big reef.
Ah, okay. And
the village was called after that.
And is that area then shippable?
Well, just fishing boats are allowed in. It's the loch and Dall, which Bowmore sits on, is too shallow for really big. Small coasters, way back in the day, would have been able to get in, but nowadays it's just small fishing boats, lobster boats.
With the small coasters, did you used to have
what they
steamships? Or?
Well, they were kind of steamships, what they called puffers. Which were very small coastal ships which carried big cargoes. They carried coal, barley, malt, which would be taken into the distillery. Depending on the tide, they would be able to take the boat into the harbour, which is just 50 metres to the east of the distillery there. But if the tide wasn't right, these coasters would just anchor out there and would take the cargoes in smaller boats.
Ship them in with small boats. Okay, so a bit history. The distillery has been run by Scotsmen. I think the owners were once Germans. Then the RAF stayed in these buildings, and now you've been overtaken by the Japanese company Suntory.
But when I started in Bowmore in 1966, the company was owned by a Scottish firm called SPM. Stanley P. Morrison was and they called the distillery was Morrison Bowmore Distillers. They owned the company up until 1994, when the Japanese drinks firm Suntory bought over the company, which means that they had at that time they had 3 Scottish distilleries: Glengarry, which is up in the north of Scotland, Auchentoshan, which is just outside Glasgow, and Bowmore here in Islay. So they're the Highland, a Lowland, and an Islay malt distillery.
Did that change anything here?
No, not really, because the company, though Suntory bought over Morrison Bowmore Distilleries, the company was run by a board of directors who were all Scotsmen and based in Glasgow.
So the operation is all Scottish?
The operation was all Scottish, yeah.
Okay, good to know.
But 2 years ago, Suntory bought over Jim Beam, the bourbon, the American bourbon firm, and it's now, the company is called Beam Suntory, because it's the Beam people who are running the distillery side of the business. So things have slightly changed. Not the production, the way we do our production, but just there are subtle changes to the way the operation is done.
So is it easier to get casks now? Or
well,
how is that?
We haven't, there's not been any problem up till now, so we just have to wait. Going forward, we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Because, they should have access to especially Beam Suntory casks, but because a very high percentage of what we produce here every year goes into American bourbon casks, first and second fills, and a smaller percentage goes into European oak sherry casks. That's how the Bowmore is made up.
So now you have a bit more close ties to some of the
Beam
distilleries.
We will be able to. I would imagine the access to good quality wood will be there. Yeah.
Good. So let's talk about the range of whiskey with Bowmore. How will the range of whiskies develop? Will we see a new non-age statement? Will we see age statement whiskies coming up? Or will the range continue what we have?
Well, Bowmore, the expressions of Bowmore at the moment are, we have a core range, which is, there's a small batch, which is a bourbon, there's a 12-year-old, 15-year-old darkest. The 12-year-old is a marriage of 12-year-old sherry and 12-year-old bourbon. The 15-year-old darkest, which is 12 years in bourbon casks, then removed and finished off for 3 years in fresh sherry casks, European oak. That is our 15-year-old darkest. And we have an 18-year-old and a 25-year-old, which are marriages of bourbon and sherry. But there have been some non-age statement releases, and from what I can gather, they're going to sort of try and phase them out, and everything that will be produced will have an age statement on it.
Interesting.
With Bowmore, yeah, they're bringing back age statement because.
So is the supply keeping up with the demand, because the demand for whiskey is rising?
Yeah, we've got there is a very good stock of Bowmore, so the company should be able to keep to the demand, I'm quite sure.
Oh, that's good to hear. Okay, so I've heard that you have your own malting floors.
Yes, we do.
How's the percentage from, let's say, brought in malt to your own malt?
I believe there's either 6 or 7 distilleries in Scotland still do traditional floor malting, and of these there are 3 on Islay. There's Kilchoman, Laphroaig and Bowmore. And of all the distilleries in Scotland that do their own floor maltings, Bowmore produces the most. We will use 35 tons of barley and malt it every week, which allows us to put around between 25 and 30% of what we use in production every week. We make in our own malt barn. We blend that with malt that is bought in from the mainland, peated to the same level as what we peat it here ourselves, which is between 25 and 30 parts per million.
Oh yeah. Talking about the peatiness of the whiskey, it's great to have someone with such a long background. How was the peatiness back in the days? Was that any different?
Well, way back in the day when I was a young man learning the job, we never heard of them measuring the peatiness of it, but the firing of our kilns was completely different. The way we burnt the peat was completely different. Hand-cut peat was burned in big blazing fires and could be burning peat for 24 hours. Now, of course, we have, if we're peating 14 tons, it'll be peated for 12, 13 hours. If it's 21 tons, which is a bigger kiln, they will peat it for 18 hours. And it's just peat smoke. The way we burn the peat, we smash it up, and once we get it to a light, we just let it smoulder to allow the peat smoke to drift up through, to get as much of the smokiness into it in a shorter time as possible. Then we dry it off with blowing hot air, which we get from a waste heat recovery system that we have within the distillery. But way back in the day, after 24 hours of big blazing peat fires, the kiln, to remove the moisture down to 5%, to be able to use it in the process, the way that they removed the moisture was they would burn smokeless fuel, a coal, anthracite it was called, and that provided the heat to finish it off. So it was completely sort of different way back in the day, until we started to regulate to get the required ppm, which is now between 25 and 30. They played about with the time, so it's about the length of time to use for the peating, depending on the amount of malt which is in the kiln at the time. So you can understand that.
More scientific today, and
yes,
back in the days
we've got much more control. We have quality control lab in Glasgow, and all the samples of everything that we produce get sent out there for analysis every week. And they keep a stringent eye on just what our phenol levels are, so that we can get continuity consistency is the key. We must get everything consistent every week, every year, so that the end product is consistently the same.
So you have the core range that stays the same. That's the aim.
The end product, which is new make spirit, that must be consistently the same every week, every year. Then when that new make spirit goes into, whether it be American bourbon casks or European oak sherry casks, the cask will determine what the end product will be after 10, 12 years. But as long as, the requirement of the distiller initially is to ensure that the new make spirit that goes into these casks for maturation is consistently the same, of the same high quality.
Okay, so...
And the phenol content should be almost consistently the same going in there.
Okay, I've read something about your warehouses. The warehouse vault number 1 is below sea level.
Well, with the warehouse vault, which is over to the west side of where we're sitting here, it's right on the loch side, right on the shore side, and that actual warehouse number 1, the vault part of it, is the oldest maturation warehouse in the Scotch whisky industry.
Oh, interesting.
That was the original building in 1779 when the guy called
what was his
David Simpson.
Okay.
David Simpson, he started the distillery in 1779, and that was the original distillery building. We can only imagine what sort of operation this David Simpson ran. He was a distiller, obviously, and a farmer, bit of an entrepreneur. He had his distillery in there, and over the years, well, it was a distillery originally. It was used for malting above the floors above were used for malting, but it's now used for the last over 100 years for maturing whiskey in. And it is, to our mind, it's the best maturation warehouse in the Scotch whisky industry, because it's almost below sea level. At high tide, it will be below sea level. It comes.
So sometimes it's below and sometimes it's above sea level.
The walls are a metre thick, so the water does not penetrate.
Oh, okay.
The water doesn't get in there, but it means that the warehouse that the whisky is maturing in, the temperature remains much the same all year round. It's a nice, cool, damp, ideal situation for the maturation of maturing Scotch whisky.
Slow maturation.
Slow, all year round, same temperature. There's no speeding up or slowing down. It's a steady maturation.
So if we have below sea level at high tide, did you ever have any flooding or any
Not in my time. I've never, don't remember ever seen it flooded, no.
Okay, 50 years, no flooding. Looks like it's a good building then.
We managed to keep it out, yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm at the end of my questions. Thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us here. And if you found this video interesting, then please feel free to share it with anybody who is interested in Scotch whisky. And thanks for watching.